All of my task trackers are meant to be 100% customizable, and that's because every position is different, so you need to work in different ways. I personally use the Google Sheets version because I find the UI to be a little bit better, but a lot of you said you can't use Google at work, so here's the Excel version. So let's say that you want to add a new column right before column D. You can right-click on column D and click on Insert. And as the pop-up indicates, the VBA that's responsible for all the automation no longer works, but we'll fix that later, so don't worry. So I'm going to go ahead and add a column name, and then we'll go to our Done tab, and we need to insert a column to the left of the status there as well, so it's all uniformed. And then we'll add the column name there as well. Now we're going to go to our Task List tab and right-click, then click on View Code. And in our Task List code, we need to change range D to D to E to E, since the new location of the status is in column E instead. If you added a column to the right of the progress/status column, you'll need to adjust these numbers as well. So you can see if the target is not started, then a timestamp will appear 5 columns to the right, and you can just count 5 columns to the right, and this is based off of that column E. So if I added 1 column, I need to change that to 6, and then all the other ones to increase by 1 as well. Down below, we have another section referencing D to D, so we need to change that to E as well. So now we're all set with the timestamps, so we can exit out of this editor. And then just to the left, we need to click on Modules, Module 2. And right here, we're telling it that the progress/status is in column 4. Now it's in column 5, and you can tell this by counting how many numbers of columns it is. So D is 4, E is 5, and you can change it to wherever you have the progress/status now. So we'll change that to 5, and then just below that, we have our recurring set to 5. We need to change that to column 6 instead. And then further down, we said that we wanted to print the contents of C1 into the 12th column. We need to change that to 13, since now we have 13 columns instead. And if you add more than 1 column, you can adjust all of these based off the number of columns that you added. And you can adjust the C1 right here in case you change the location of the weekly start date. We'll go ahead and save our changes in the VBA and exit out of the editor. And as mentioned, C1 is the start date, and that's important to have correct because that's what the charts are built off of. So the next step is to save this and exit out of it entirely. And I always quit Excel as well because sometimes it's a bit finicky with VBA. So once I completely quit out of the application, I'm going to open it back up, enable the macros, and the circular reference has to do with the automatic counter moving to the Done tab, so you don't have to worry about that. So now you can test it out. When I change the status to pending, the timestamp will appear in the correct place. And when I change it to done, it will move entirely from this task list and move to the bottom of the Done tab. By default, I have it set where when the priority is marked as recurring, then when the task is marked as done, it does not move automatically to the Done tab, but it stays in the task list instead. It still has the timestamps as normal, but it doesn't actually move the task from this list to the Done tab because I want the task still there for next week. But some of you asked how to make the adjustments where all the recurring tasks will also move to the Done tab, so let me show you how to do it. I'm going to flip the task back to pending real quick, and then we'll go to the Task List tab and right-click, then click on View Code. And it'll pop up with the task list code. You don't need that, so you can exit out of it. Instead, we want to click on Module 2 instead. Where it says dim recurring value as string, we can go ahead and delete that entirely. And a little bit lower, where it says recurring value equals WS source, you can go ahead and delete that as well. And we'll also need to adjust the if statement. So right below that, you'll see if done value equals done and recurring value is not equal to recurring. Go ahead and delete the and recurring value is not equal to recurring. And that's all we have to do to make the changes. So we can go ahead and save the app script, and we can exit out of the editor, and then we can save the file itself and exit out of the file. And macros can be kind of finicky sometimes in Excel, so I quit the app entirely. Then I'll open up the spreadsheet again, and I'll enable the macros. Don't worry about the circular references. That has to do with the automatic counter being moved to the Done tab. It's not going to affect anything, so you're good to go. So now, when we mark a task as done, even if it has a recurring priority, it will be removed entirely from the task list and added to the bottom of the Done tab. So let's say we want to change the status options. We'll go ahead and click on D4 all the way down to the end of the column. And then we'll go up to our menu bar and select Data, then click on Data Tools, then Data Validation. Under Source, you'll see all the existing drop-down options separated by commas. To change one, you can just highlight and delete, and then change it with what you want to say. I'll check the box to apply the changes to other cells, then hit OK. So now you can select the new option from the drop-down, but the conditional formatting is messed up. So I'll click on any of the drop-downs that contain the conditional formatting, then go Home, Conditional Formatting, Manage Rules. We'll double-click on the old option, then expand the condition. In between the quotes, we can simply change the old word to the new option. We'll hit Enter, then hit OK. And we don't need to have these checkboxes for stop if true, so we'll go ahead and exit out of those, then hit OK. So as you can see, now Working has the same conditional formatting that Pending used to have. Since the status is what controls the automations, we need to make some changes to the code. So I'll right-click on Task List, then click on View Code. We can delete the old option of pending, and then between those two quotes, add the new option working, and then we'll save the VBA. Now VBA can be pretty finicky when you make changes, so I'll save the document, exit out entirely, quit Excel, then I'll open it up and enable the macros again. You can ignore the circular references pop-up and just hit OK. Alright, so now we don't have a timestamp in task started, but when we change it to working, the timestamp will appear. Now let's say that you don't want the option to be done whenever you complete a task, and you want it to be completed instead. We can make that change, but you'll need to go one step further, since there's additional automation that exists for done. So just like last time, we'll select D4 all the way through the end of column D, then go to Data, Data Tools, Data Validation, and you'll see the options right there. You can make the change directly in the list. And you can check the checkbox again. I forgot to do this in the tutorial. So as you can see, if I select completed, nothing happens, and that's because the automation needs to be adjusted. So we'll right-click on Task List and go to View Code. I'll replace the word done and put the new option instead. In this case, it's completed. Then I'll exit out of that window and open the window for Module 2. Down near the bottom, you'll see if done value equals done. We'll change that to if done value equals completed. And that's all the changes that we need to make to automatically move the task from the task list to the done tab whenever we mark the task as completed. So we can exit out of the window and then hit save. And now we can exit out of the VBA editor and test it out. So I'll change the status back to working real quick, and then I'll change it back to completed. So as you can see, the task is automatically moved to the done tab and all the timestamps are applied appropriately. So that's how to update the drop-down options and how to adjust the code if you're updating the options in the status category. And if you like this video, follow Sheets by Olin for more.